Okay, let's go. Happy Monday. We have a very, very special set right here. If you're a subscriber, go ahead and comment below. Give the video a thumbs up. There's a chance that you might score this. Remember, this is for people that comment and are subscribed to both of my channels. Please don't say, I hope I win it, and then I go check the unboxing. You're not even subscribed, nor did you comment. So the rules are kind of simple. If you can follow them, that'd be appreciated. And you're going to score. I think this is one of the probably top 3 sets that I've ever listened to. It's going to be number 3 on my personal ranking, behind the PMG APX SE, and then number 2 could be the Camper CP622B, which are both right there, and I listen to both of those sets in comparison with this one. The Valhalla, which is a set that you might know and that I said that I loved, I do love it, and I still wreck that. And if you got that, you probably would stay put, though, if you like the idea of having a switch, just a singular switch that lifts up the low end. This is all Sony BAs. This does that, and the Valhalla doesn't. So this has great tuning in one configuration, and then if you want to hit the rumble switch, you can add some low end. And you don't need one of these little pins. These things are, this is an evolutionary set, a legit evolutionary set. Let me explain. When I did the video for Crin's Dusk 3, and he was incorporating a bunch of DSP presets, and it was all kind of catered around that set, I dubbed that as evolutionary as well. DSPs have been around, there have been some apps and some sets, but putting the whole package together with a collaboration, with a well-tuned set, and then having multiple presets that you could do by DSP was something that was not done prior, and it was evolutionary. This set has a pin on the back, or it has a switch that I can hit quite easily. While it's in my ear, I did this many times over the past few days, and so while it's sitting in your ear, you can reach back and just use your fingernail and then hit it over. So you don't need this ridiculous, took years for someone to come up with a better thing than this. And companies are still releasing sets as we speak with this thing needed. And it's a pain in the neck to measure. It's a pain in the neck to adjust. It's a pain in the neck to get other people to be interested in it, because most people think, I'm just going to figure out my favorite setting and then I'm never going to touch it again, because who wants to bust out a pen or a pin to change the tuning? That's just not most people in the hobby. This, on the other hand, is very practical. You can do it while it's in your ear. You don't need to even be conscious. As long as it's on the same setting, when you put it in your ear, then you don't need to worry about whether or not you'll pick it up anyway audibly. But it's a very simple thing to do, and you can hear the click. It's not like a slider, it's actually got a physical click to it. And again, the low end, I would say that the red is a very vocal friendly. It's something that's very much along the lines of something like variations or sets that people that don't really want too much mid bass encroaching into the vocals. It's actually got a teeny little dip right there. And then if you want a little bit more meat, a little bit more note weight, then you would hit the rumble switch. It's kind of cool that they called it rumble instead of bass, because bass would turn people off and say, I don't want a bass headset. This is done very well. Let's go ahead and talk about music. Before we do that, this is I really got to reprint this. This is the tracks that I use in bass, mids, treble, and then some OCD stuff. And if you want to take a look, if you want to ask me, I should put this up online so that you can see it anytime. The autism, I don't deviate really ever. I just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Starting in the low end, the 808s, the 808 is like a Roland, it's a piece of kit that's very famous, and groups like Public Enemy, Ghetto Boys, Nas, Jay-Z, Outkast, Kendrick Lamar, Tupac Shakur, just a lot of that. The drops, the hits, the bass hits, are deck mix. They're not really an instrument like a kick drum or something, and this conveys that very well. I listened to it in both settings, and it's very clearly much preferable with the rumble switch on. I listened to a couple albums all the way through. I listened to Kendrick Lamar, Damn, and I also listened to Pimp a Butterfly, and this sounded brilliant. This sounded really, really nice. I actually did almost all of my listening with rumble. I did some listening last night without it turned on and thought it sounded nice, but the difference I much prefer with the rumble switch on. And the sell point here for you as a consumer is that you can have either of those, and you just need a fingernail. You don't need a pin, or you don't need anything like that. This is $1,400. Let's talk about that while I'm talking about bass. the camper is like 4,500. The PMG is like 6,000. There's a lot of sets out there, and if they were weighted the same and had the same cable and it was a legit test, it would be hard to I don't think a lot of people would be able to pick out which is the more pricey one. And this is $1,400, so that's a lot of money, but I'm in that market. I play in Summit Fi, and this is probably the best kilobuck set that has been released right now. And again, it is a set that is kind of evolution in the hobby, and I hope other companies follow up and maybe pay a finder's fee to ThieAudio because they came up with this very smart idea. So the bass sounds good. As we get to bass guitars, 4 and 5 string bass guitars, the pulls, the plucks, the release, the ringing of the string. This is something that lives, it's called a bass guitar, but really all the way up to 6K is very influential on how the bass guitar sounds when it's played back to you. The ringing of the strings and the snapping of the strings doesn't occur in the bass section of the frequency response graph, so it's all kind of connected. The bass guitar sounds really good listening to tracks like Please Do Not Go, the 598 EP, Garage Day Revisited by Metallica, amongst others. I think it sounds very good. Sultans of Swing, Dire Straits also sounded really good. That's supposed to sound like he's kind of prominent and steps forward at times, and it actually conveys that very well. That listening was done only in Rumble. As we get to the kick drum, the iconic track from Led Zeppelin's 4th album, it's called When the Levee Breaks. Dun, 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 dun. This does that very well. This does that in both modes, because I did check that, but I'd much prefer it with Rumble mode. It slams, it's very produced, it's supposed to sound produced. Like, how do you do this? How do I place the mics, and how did they did a lot of effects on that. Like state-of-the-art stuff back in 71 or something like that. And it comes through well. So if you like your low end in the rhythm section of rock and roll, or you like your 808 drops, you'll be fine here. If you prefer a more clean vocal replay, you do have the switch and can go into a much more 3 dB, more friendly maybe to vocals without putting some husk on. Speaking of, as we move into the vocals, stuff like everything you listen at right here. Van Halen, U2, Rolling Stones, Eagles, Grateful Dead, Steely Dan, Soundgarden, Robert Palmer, Neil Young, can be quite offensive, not on this set. Led Zeppelin, Meatloaf, Jim Croce, some people get on me all the time about that. Lane Staley, Chris Cornell, Nina doing the cover of Blondie. Sounds excellent on this. There's kind of this honeymoon thing, but then there's the Valhalla, which I have in my possession. I had 2, one of them's gone. This is a lot like that, and in some tracks it's kind of hard to, like, for example, vocals. When I listened to this without the rumble switch on, this sounded a lot like the Valhalla to me. There wasn't a lot of difference in how female and male vocals, like of some that I've just showed you, it didn't really seem very different. If I hit the switch, it seemed different, and it actually seemed more preferable. So if you like or don't like more or less note weight, you actually have the option to go from one to the other, and it's very easy to do so, which is really again, the evolutionary part of this set. So it does vocals well, and it gives you 2 options. The tuning doesn't really change beyond the mids, but it's not advertised, or it shouldn't really do that. It's called a rumble switch. So you can do either or. I really do prefer the rumble switch. Vocals sound good. With the rumble switch on, there's a husk to male vocals that I find preferable, particularly stuff like Neil Young. Mark Knopfler, holy crap, Dire Straits, almost totally. He sounded really a lot better with the rumble switch on. I don't like stuff like the variations. I know why people like it. That's just not my personal taste. So hit the rumble switch and I'm really good to go. As we get to the last part of this, we're talking about overtones and harmonics, which is, again, knock my finger on the table, it creates a sound. For a split second, that's my knuckle striking the table, which creates, that's what the sound is, it's a knock. If you look at a knock on a spectrogram, you see a giant spike and then a decay. That's the sound that's created from the fundamental vent. And this carries into stuff like cymbals, rides and crashes, guitars with or without distortion pedals, electric or acoustic, the pluck pulling off of the string, keyboards, pianos, the fundamental event of pulling on a string, pushing your finger down on a piano key, that makes sound, and most of that is harmonics and overtones. So there's a lot of chance for a set to be great for you, but when we get to the upper mids and treble region, it's going to kind of DQ itself from maybe being what you want because it's a little bit too intense. 30 minutes is great. Then after that, you start getting that telltale sign that you might start getting kind of like ringing in your ear. And nobody really likes that. And so I like sofa sets. I like sets that I can just listen to for as long as I like. Like I said, Damn by Kendrick Lamar. I went through that whole thing, and there's a lot of upper frequency stuff mixed in there. I went through it so fast I didn't even realize. It just went from one side to the other because it's a digital file. And I was doing something and had to go ahead and go through another one. Then that's why I went to Pimp a Butterfly. But that went really fast. Nothing. I could listen to this for a very long time, so I would call it a sofa set. That would be in the rumble switch on. I didn't do any long-term listening with that rumble switch off. I just listened to tracks, maybe about 10. So my opinion is mostly based on the rumble switch and not as much on with it not on. But I did listen to about 10 tracks with it just in one. And I did several times where I was hitting the switch to see if I could, how much I could pick it up when I was listening to a deck mix drop, how much difference it made with Bonham's kick drum. Then I listened to some other stuff and looked at the graph and realized I was wasting my time, really. Do I recommend that you purchase this? Let's go ahead and rank it. Is it a dumpster fire? Let me check my own rank. Yeah, absolutely not. Hope it was free. For somebody that comments below this video, it's quite possible. Coping is working. I always got to think about this stuff. Yeah, not at all, actually. I saw the box. I saw that it was Sonians. All of the BAs are Sonians. Opened it up. Saw that the switch was super easy to move. If you check the unbox, you can hear the little switch. It makes a sound. Did it many times, and yeah, there was never a coping. Competes with its peers. This is where I'm going to overstate stuff or understate it. My brain's moving right now. The Valhalla, if you could look at my top rank sets, is really a lot more affordable than what is around it. The Storm, the PMG APX SE, the Camper Titanium version, those are very expensive. If you can't afford that, but you do want to play in the 1,000, or like some people, 2,000 is the absolute limit and they'll never go beyond that, or 1,000. Is this worth it? This is arguably better than the two sets that are right there. Those are that's a combined over $10,000, or approximately $10,000 of gear right there. I don't think most people would be able to tell the difference in quality between these three sets. They might say, well, the guitar sounds louder, or the vocals sound more forward. You might be able to pick up some stuff that the graph would maybe indicate, but somebody's saying, oh, this sounds much cleaner and crisper, and I like this. This is getting back details, everything sound. I don't know if anybody would be able to pick that up. And at $1,400, and then, so that's just tuning and resolution. There is no veil. There's nothing covering something out. There's no masking where one thing covers the other. The tuning doesn't really do that. Everything comes through fine. Nothing's blocking out vocals at anything that I'm listening to. And then on top of all of that, you've got a switch, which is probably the future of the hobby. And a lot of sets are probably going to I won't even edit. I'll just keep going. You've got a bass switch. It's a rumble switch that can take the tuning and just affect what is really the rhythm section or the lower end of the vocals, and really nothing else, which it would essentially and very simply put add note weight is the easiest way to describe it. It would sound like it's more dense replay. And if you weren't into that, you could just, while you're listening, reach back and hit the switch with your finger. It's such a not big deal. And at $1,400, it's an easy rec. It's probably number 3 in my rankings. And these are, I believe these are 1 and 2, and again, $6,000, $4,500, $600, $1,400. And I look forward, if anybody has these sets that I'm pointing at, and then you hear this in the future, if you can pick up some differences, I'd love, I always tell people, I'm so open. This is audio, and this is gear, and this is all subjective. You see that graph right there? That is an objective expression from a measurement, but it's, as soon as somebody opens their mouth as to what that means, it becomes subjective. It switches from the objective realm to the subjective, because you're talking about what it does to sound, which is dependent on your preference, which is dependent on your hearing, which is dependent on your library. So as soon as people start to talk about what a graph means, you are listening to a subjective opinion like every other part of their video, whoever the reviewer is. There is no there's nothing objective about discussion about an objective thing. That's what it is, that's what it measures, and that's it. If you want to talk about how this starts to impact vocals, well, that's your opinion, and again, your hearing in your library. That might not be mine. I might think that something needs more bass or needs less, or I might not like as much energy in the ear gain as you do. So it becomes totally subjective. So be careful of that. Music is really kind of the anchor. We are here because of that. I hope so. And if the takes on this seem different from another person's take, refer to the, don't look at graphs, or look at the library that they listen to. Look at previous reviews that they've done. Does it seem consistent to you? Is there like, that makes sense? That's the reason to mention music in every review, so that somebody can go and listen to it. I actually do that. I listen to something mentioned and say, oh, I don't. Or most times I'll say, oh, I see what that person is saying. But I need context, and music is a context. $1,400 for this. It's the best thing that ThieAudio's put out. I'm going to do a video about ThieAudio. All the bias aside, because I've known Linsol before Linsol was Linsol, there's a collection of about 8 or 9 ThieAudios that are legit endgame for people that live in the $1,000 range. The Prestige LTD, the V16, multiple Monarchs, this one being the best, and this is the 4th release. The first one wasn't my thing. There is not a company out there that I've ever run into that has that many releases, that has that many hits. It's absolutely wild to watch this become what it is. And it's all branded drivers, and it's got the switch, and it's an exceptionally easy rec. And you've got 2 ways to go. And it's super easy to do. So you might prefer it stock, and there will be reviewers that like it that way, and then there'll be other people come and say, yeah, I turned on the rumble switch and I've never looked back. And that's pretty much this guy right here. So that's it. That's an intro. First impressions of the ThieAudio Monarch MK4. Very, very, very well done. I love the metal shell. I love the switch. I love the tuning. I love how they modified that one tuning and gave a better, for me, tuning. But I can go either one. Both of them are nice. I just like the rumble best. That's it. You guys have a great week. I'll see you probably in about 3 days. I have the Luna in the house as well, and I'll be comparing the Monarch MK. Somebody asked me on Hi-Fi Guides about the Origin. I'll give it the Origin is a set that has a bone conduction driver, and it's very, 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 very subtle. Its presence is there, and it's something that you like or not. And as we get more and more into bone conduction drivers, it's really something that's becoming more polarizing, because that ability to discern a driver amongst other drivers is something that people enjoy for a while, and then it fatigues them. Knowing that there's that driver and then other ones, because you're hearing it in the replay and it becomes a mental distraction. I love the Origin. I think it's fantastic. I wrecked it highly. If you enjoy it, that's great. I don't think that really compares to this set. I also think that the Valhalla is probably the better comparison, and because this has the ability to be rumbled or not, puts it above the Valhalla for me. Even though I think that's $1,900, so $500 more, I would say that this is the better investment for your money. Absolutely fantastic job by the company, and I am now out.